Okay.
Good morning. Would like to call the Executive Committee meeting Tuesday, November 23rd to order with a roll call, please.
Mr. Lear? Present. Mr. Hess? Present. Ms. Polk?
Present.
Ms. Weber? Present. Mr. Payton?
Present.
Ms. Parker?
Present.
Mr. Fairfield? Present. Mr. Carrico? Present. Mr. Featherling?
Present.
Mr. Miller? Present. Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Hunter? Present. Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
Mr. Searoy?
Present.
We have a quorum.
I have no request for public comment today. Can I get a motion to move up new business up to the front here, a resolution approving the honorary intersection for Reverend Lewis Barnes? Is there a motion to move that? Mr. Miller, Mr. Long, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Same sign. All right, so now this is under consideration. Is the resolution in here? I apologize. Sometimes we write it after the fact. It was in the email?
It's the very last thing.
It's the very last thing? Oh, okay. On page 20, and Mr. Payton, did you want to introduce this to the group?
Yeah, I could.
Yes.
You want me to do it here?
If you would like, sir, yeah, wherever you feel appropriate.
Okay.
Here.
All right. Good morning. You know, it's truly a pleasure for me to serve in a position where I'll be able to serve the community. And Reverend Barnes, he was sort of like a hero to me. Sometime I remember asking him to help me register individuals to vote. And we came right to this building on a bus. Juanita Barnes sitting right there with him. And any time he would take the opportunity, he would actually drive his van to bring folks up here to vote. So I would like for his granddaughter, Ms. Holloway, will you please come up and you want to...
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to read this in regards to my grandfather, Reverend Lewis Barnes. Reverend Lewis A. Barnes was installed as the pastor of St. Ann Woods Community Chapel in May of 1980. He served in that position for 41 years until his transition. Pastor Barnes was well known for his passionate role as a strong civic voice in the local community and his smooth voice for singing. He was never intimidated and made sure that a voice of righteousness and honor was heard in the community. He advocated for many changes and supported fair and honest leadership throughout his years. He was a faithful chaplain for the character of Pembroke Senior Citizens for over 17 years. He also served as a trustee for the village of Hopkins Park for more than 12 years and even won the most recent election in April for another 4-year term. Whether it was marching or being a spokesperson for those without a voice, Reverend Lewis A. Barnes walked the walk and talked the talk for many years. During the month of June, for many years, his church sponsored a fish fry and gave free dinners to all those that came from the entire surrounding communities. He took his conviction outside the walls of the church and made a permanent mark on the community that will never be removed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Searoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had the pleasure of attending the St. Ann Woods Chapel and seeing Reverend Barnes at work. He was truly a man of God and a man of his community. What he built there and thrived with the community and the surrounding area, he is very well respected. So I think this is truly a great honor.
So are you making that as a motion?
Yes, sir. I'll make that motion.
Would you like to second that, Mr. Payton?
Yes, sir.
I let Mr. Payton second that one. So
Thank you.
Kind of flipped it around there.
Yeah,
but
thank you,
sorry. You had the mic, so you get it first. Any problems, you take it up with him, Sam. Okay? So we have a motion and a second. We'll draft an official resolution for the full board. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and I apologize. Did anyone else have any comment on the board? I should have done that before the vote, but figured as much. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you so much for coming today. There'll be, I want to say a cursory vote at the full board meeting. We'll get to do this again with an official resolution to present if you'll join us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on, no presentations. Approval of the minutes, October 26, 2021. Is there a motion there?
Polk.
Ms. Polk, second. Mr. Fairfield. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under legislative, Mr. Lear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
A week ago Monday, board member Kuster and myself went to UCCI. The agenda was a roundtable discussion of some issues that various counties are dealing with. And some of these have to do with action by the legislature in Springfield. One law that the governor has now signed, Senate Bill 536, is going to have an impact on Kankakee County because there are several features, but maybe the one that should be highlighted is a requirement for a special voting booth for those that are in wheelchairs that may involve some additional expense for the county. Undoubtedly, in fact, will involve some additional expense. So more detail on that probably will come up in community services if there are any other special things that the board needs to know. Most of that will be handled by the county clerk because it's administrative in nature.
Is that an unfunded mandate?
It is an unfunded mandate. In the discussion at the round table, there were a couple of items that are circulating in the General Assembly that were of concern to people there. One of them is a bill that has been introduced several times but never got even to a committee, and now was scheduled for a committee this last Thursday. A bill that would eliminate the office of coroner and require all counties to have a medical examiner. Clearly this is something that would be difficult for many counties. It would be additional expense for Kankakee County, for the small rural counties to the south of us. It would virtually be impossible. And so it's something that whoever's proposing it really hasn't taken time to think about it. There was some concern that it might be coming from a large urban county to the north that really was not paying attention to the conditions that exist in the counties outside of that large urban county. There's also been a lot of discussion apparently, and something have to be watched closely in terms of establishing statewide zoning when it comes to either solar and or wind farms. Neither of these are at a point where it's likely to be passed immediately, but are there things that need to be watched because they would have detrimental effects that if they get too close to being passed, well, we need to be able to respond to our legislators because they're both detrimental to the county. Those were the major topics that were covered in terms of issues that were talked about.
Thank you. The one thing of note, and we've heard this before, the coroner change to medical examiner. There aren't medical examiners in the state of Illinois. You can't find one. It's like an epidemiologist in a pandemic. I mean, you can't fill these positions. It's just ridiculous to think that you're going to find 102 of those out there in a state that might have, what, 10? I mean,
that would be very liberal in number.
I mean, seriously, it's ridiculously low how many medical examiners there are. Unbelievable. And again, unfunded. So we would have to come up with that money and that difference between whatever a coroner gets paid and, oh, I don't know, medical examiners twice that at least.
Probably.
You know, so you don't go to 15 years of college to make that, you know, that amount of money. So, so that was one thing, or a couple things. Thanks, Steve. I had a couple obviously the election law, but there's the part of it is the dark money that they're calling from out of state. It seems like when it suits their purposes, then it's not dark money, but when it doesn't, then it is. So they want to, the new law will allow the General Assembly to limit out-of-state money for judicial races, and also to redraw the judicial sub-circuits in 22 rather than 21. Remember, that's like our circuit. They want to redraw that. I would be very worried that we'd end up part of something coming from the north, just like everything else, rather than part of the circuit we have right now. It's another way to dilute an electorate and take control by that, the Chicago Mafia. So that's not good for anybody here locally on any political front. So please keep an eye on that, because that's a real problem when they start messing around with the courts. There's also that task force to assist persons with disabilities and make various changes to the delayed primary and filing of vacancies. It seems like those are just, you know, clerical, functionary type stuff and nothing groundbreaking. The moving the date is groundbreaking enough. Also infrastructure funding, we got, Illinois got $17 billion. It's still pretty unclear on how that is distributed and prioritized by the states. More to come, I guess. I haven't been able to see how we'd be able to influence what comes here to Kankakee County yet, and I've been doing a lot of working on that, and also talking to other people, part of the MPO, which is our Metropolitan Planning Organization. What are those regional projects of significance? You know, whether it's Brookmont's viaduct that is in very bad shape and is a problem, or is it the exit at Court Street over here by Ricky Rockets, which is
312.
Yeah, 312 dead ends into. I mean, there's regional significant projects out there. Wastewater. They, as an aside, they've delayed the grants for broadband based on all this new money that's gone into that bucket. There was like about $300 million more requested than was available through that grant that we wrote for Hopkins Park to bring broadband. So, and we were trying to have it go county-wide. So there's a reshuffling of the infrastructure deck going on, and we just don't know where and how we're going to access that. But believe me, I look at it every day. So, and as more information comes up, I'll let you know. But it's siloed into buckets, if you will, and we have some of those needs here in the county. We have those buckets here, especially where it goes with wastewater, Hopkins Park, Pembroke Township, and then also broadband for the whole county. So, oh, airport improvements. I shouldn't sell that short also. We are looking to upgrade our airport into a job engine. And so that's what they've been working out the past couple of years out there. Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, just a question. I was deer hunting with Senator Joyce last week. I didn't get Bambi or his brother. Anyway, and we discussed that very thing that you just articulated too. My question is, if indeed we have a list of shovel-ready projects ready to go?
Yeah, the MPO has a list of all of their road projects basically for the next 40 years, 45 years. 2045, that's our long-range transportation plan. There's a few things that aren't on it that are going to be, like the airport's request. That's part of transportation, and they're part of the MPO. But for the most part, we've got things mapped out now.
And the airport project, is that a $64 million project?
It's substantial if you're going to add another runway. And what you have to do is to add a runway that's beefed up for the larger planes. We can land the larger planes there now. The runway's longer than Midway's runway, but we just can't have the repetitive pounding. So if and this is up to them, but this is when I was engaged with them, they were talking about was putting in a new, I don't want to say qualified runway for the pounding that it would take to have the larger planes landing, but then rip up the other one and replace that, so then you've got two runways, and then you have development districts around the airport. Freight, jobs, assembly, that's what they're talking about. They're not wanting to compete with Piatone, or I don't know if anything's competing with Piatone but Piatone right now. But you know what I mean. It's that was supposed to be passenger. This is more freight and job engine, what they're looking here. So
Thank you.
I don't know if there's a price tag on it, but it's not. It's more in that area than it is the 1 million area. So, any other questions about that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Featherling.
I wanted to ask you, what's a job engine? What do you qualify that as?
Basically a place where you bring either parts in for assembly or formation of, or things that need to take advantage of an airport, like, I don't know, the FedExes of the world and those types of things. I've told people we're a heck of a lot closer to Justice, Illinois than Rockford is. You make millions more dollars with less freight and less gas to get to and from the next day air hub into Justice, if you will.
Okay.
It's that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Whether it's just air freight or if it's things that rely on air travel to produce the products that they make.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Let's see here. And by the way, that's their plan. It's not mine. I just absolutely agree with it. I think that's the sweet spot we're in. So, moving on, legislative, we did that. Information systems. Mr. Duval, do you have anything today? Sure. Yeah, that's what works.
Basically just here for questions. This is typically in November. It's the end of the fiscal year for us. We use the remaining of the budget to go through items of hardware, test them, see what needs to be replaced. We'll do this at the end of November and into December. We take advantage of the fact that people tend to take off, so it's easier to do it without disrupting the departments. We schedule for this. We've done this annually. I've decided what I don't want to say the major projects, but the important projects that I want to make sure that I get done for 2022. Some of which examples would be I want to replace maybe some of the security DVRs, maybe like one on the 5th floor to update those. That's been in place for 10 or 12 years. Items like that to make sure that we keep things going, preventative projects that you don't have time to do during the year. So basically, if anybody has any questions, that's what we're doing right now.
Any questions? Nope. Okay, thank you. Health Department, Mr. Beavis.
Good morning. So just real quick, and for our current November numbers, and I had this typed up a couple of days ago, so there have been some adjustments, and I'll go ahead and read those for you. For COVID-19 cases, currently we're at around 19,200. We're getting ready to post the new numbers for this past week. We're at 282 deaths. Now we've had an additional death this week. The region positivity rate for Region 7, that's Will and Kankakee County, stands at 6%. No, I'm sorry, it's a little over 5. Kankakee County is at 6%. It was 5.9 that I had listed a couple of days ago, but we are continuing to still see a small surge in our community. It's nowhere near the numbers of last year's November. That was awful for all of us. There was also no vaccine available at that point, but we were doing 200 cases a day last year throughout all of November. Right now we're currently doing anywhere from 60 to 80 a day for the last couple of weeks. And then, let me see, vaccinations are fully vaccinated is at about 44.6% as of yesterday's number that was posted by the state. The health department is continuing to schedule appointments for vaccinations, for COVID vaccinations on Tuesdays and Thursdays by appointment. We have started with the pediatric vaccinations. We had an event a couple of weeks ago. We'll be having the second shot for those individuals on December 4th. That is a Saturday. And then we'll be scheduling future ones going from that, based on the demand. We've not been seeing a lot of demand for the 5 to 11-year-olds yet, so we'll just have to wait and continue to watch that and see how it goes. I will say that we are promoting what I would call, and I'm stealing this from other individuals, I didn't make it up, recipes for a healthy Thanksgiving for everybody. Some of the ingredients are getting vaccinated. The vaccines are available for all 5-year-old and up. Continue to wear a mask indoors when you can't maintain social distancing. Washing your hands as often as possible. We're getting into the cold and flu season too, so we're starting to see some more numbers there. A lot of people are coughing, sneezing. If you don't cough into your elbow and you're coughing into your hands, you need to wash your hands, please. Stay home if you're sick. These are all things that we've been promoting for the last 2 years and before. Getting tested if you're sick. A lot of people think, oh, it's just my sinuses, I just have a cold, but they actually have COVID, so you don't want to take that home and spread that to your loved ones. And then if you're going to be traveling, obviously try to avoid the large crowds, and if it's by boat or plane, please reach out, check with those businesses to see if they're requiring any kind of testing beforehand to show that you're negative, or if you need your vaccine card to show that you're vaccinated. Make sure you have that so that you don't cause any hiccups in your traveling. And then yesterday was National Public Health Thank You Day. So I would like to extend a big thank you to all our staff at the Kankakee County Health Department, the hospitals in our community and all over, the long-term care facilities and their workers, the Aunt Martha's in our community, Dwayne Dean, Hippocrates, and anyone else who I'm not mentioning whose role it is to help protect the public's health on a day-to-day basis outside of the pandemic or during the pandemic. With that, I'll take any questions.
One question I had was, I heard some out of the corner of my ear regarding mixing the vaccinations, and then if you had Johnson & Johnson, there was a request or an advice to have one of the two mRNA vaccinations. They thought that was better. Have you seen or heard of anything like that? Like if you had J&J, you should get one of the mRNA ones?
The CDC and the State Health Department has expressed that it is up to the individual at this point, that you don't have to just get, if you've been vaccinated with Pfizer or Moderna or Johnson & Johnson, you don't have to get your booster just from that shot. They are allowing you to mix and match, it's called. There is evidence that one of the mRNA vaccines has a little more efficacy to it. So it was suggested that possibly some people who had received the Johnson & Johnson take one of those, yes. But that doesn't mean that they're suggesting only to get that. You could still choose to get the same shot if it was a Johnson & Johnson or the Moderna, or some individuals, if they didn't like the way they felt, say after a Pfizer shot, they're trying the Moderna the second time around for their booster. So you can get any one of the three as your booster.
Thanks. Any other questions for John?
Mr. Beavis?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
John, how come our vaccination rate is so much lower than the rest of the country? Is there a reason why that is, or are people getting them somewhere else and you don't know about them, or how's that working? You know?
The vaccine totals are counted towards your address in Kankakee County. So if you look at our vaccination rate now at about 45% compared to, if you went onto the state's website and went on every county and clicked on it, you would see a number that are lower than ours, and you would see many that are higher than ours. A lot of factors play into that. I'm not going to necessarily get into that. It's people's choices. And obviously, when you get into a smaller community, such as a Kankakee compared to a DuPage County or Chicago, the city of, a lot of factors will play into there, and or businesses that are requiring individuals to get shots that then inflates that number and makes it look a little bit higher. So we have struggled here in our county for a number of reasons that we have expressed over the past year since the vaccines have been available.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody.
All right, and nothing today from schools. Let's see here. VAC monthly report. Is there a motion to put that on file? Mr. Payton, second.
Polk.
Ms. Polk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against, same sign. Motion carries. County Administrator report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Currently, there's a lot going on upstairs in administration. Where most pressing is open enrollment, which is December 1st through the 15th, through the 10th if you're a retiree who happens to be on our insurance. The difference in days relates to when we report to IMRF any changes in our retirees. Their costs are deducted from their pension, and that's got to be in by I think the 14th this year, so it's an earlier date, so we need to cut the retiree enrollment off. They tend to enroll rather early anyway. So 1st through the 10th, software updates are due today so that they can be tested and we can ensure that the rates are all correct. The video, which was shot 11/6, the enrollment video, is to be received today as well for review and any corrections, so that we've got that all ready to go for December 1st rollout. Recruiting, we have 15 current open positions. We had 10 last month and 14 in September. So we had a slight dip last month and I was kind of optimistic, but currently we are up again. Still in that number of 15 openings, the probation officers, they're looking for 3 to 4 of those. So it's really, the number is closer to 20 than it is 15. We have 9 openings that are over 30 days old. Last month we had 6 openings that are 30 days old. So the last 30 days has seen less movement than we've had previous 30 to 60 days. Really the highest, there's, like I said, the 3 to 4 in probation, 2 in the circuit clerk's office. We still have 2 in the highway department, an engineering technician. And then Mark's position, Mr. Rogers, our highway engineer, we did move forward with that about, I don't know, mid-October or so. Mark and I, we were really not getting responses. We had 1 response out of all the postings that we did on our website, the state of Illinois, the 2 professional engineering sites that Mark had. Mark was actually reaching out to people he knew in the industry to try to get some contacts there, and we had 1 response out of all of that. Mid-October, we put an ad out on my LinkedIn page, and we received another 2 viable candidates. There were 5 other candidates that came all from Southeast Asia, so meeting the qualifications for the state of Illinois was not going to be possible, so they were eliminated. Mark and I did pre-interview the 3 last week, the 3 candidates last week. We are turning those over to a subcommittee of the board and the highway department or highway committee to interview next week. So we'll move forward with that. What will happen is that team will interview and determine who they would like to send to IDOT for testing. So what happens is once they're pre-qualified or qualified by this board, a resolution goes to IDOT listing the candidates. They are interviewed by IDOT and they take a test on the sections of the Illinois code that relate to highways. So they have to pass that test. IDOT then sends the list back of 1, 2, or 3, whoever is eligible to be hired. And from that, the board then would move forward with a resolution to name that person as the county highway engineer. So, I mean, it could conceivably, my timetable target is that by the 14th, the next board meeting, December 14th, that board subcommittee will have their recommendations, and we can send that resolution to IDOT. Now, how quickly IDOT turns around, sets up interviews and tests for those people and gets that process done, we're probably looking at mid to late January, just based on the holidays we anticipate, and then we'll move forward from there. So that's where we're at with that. I mean, honestly, I think I'm optimistic about that. I don't know how Mr. Rogersfield, he and I had a conversation yesterday about our candidates, and we agreed to say nothing that would impact the board's decision or that subcommittee's decision. We want to listen to what their feedback is after the interview. So, but I would hope or think that Mark at some point will add his technical questions and responses and technical expertise to the decision of the board. So that's where we're at with that. That's been a big process the last couple of weeks. So we're moving forward with that. Sexual harassment training, we are nearing the end of the year, so we need all sexual harassment training certifications back from all department heads. A reminder was sent again yesterday to any departments that had some missing verifications. We're not doing individual certificates of completion. It is by department this year. The county board, you all received your link and your instructions, so we hope to see those. And once you've completed the training, if you could stop and see, Kelly's got the login sheet there that you can confirm that you did take the training, so that we're in compliance with state law prior to 12/31. EEO4 reporting is in process. The deadline for that is January the 4th. So Joanne will be working on that, or is working on that. I know she's run the reports. I'm not quite sure where it is. On an aside, Joanne was out for medical leave this month on the 23rd, and actually came back in 10 days later after major surgery to make sure payroll was done. So just terrific. I mean, what a work ethic we have in the administration department, and we're really happy to have her. Payroll related, we're in the middle of FY22 increases. Those will all have to be, once we do payroll next week, then all the increases have to go in for all the employees for 12/1 dates. So that's quite a bit of work. We're getting geared up for that and making sure that we have all the department's EDS sheets in-house so that we've got all our documentation for that. And we're working on performance evaluations for the administration departments. So it hasn't been done before, not that I could find any documentation. The chairman and I have talked about it for some time, really wanting to implement a performance evaluation process for administration. And it used to be always tied with increases long ago in my career, right? So you'd get your evaluation and then you get your increase based on that. That's really no longer the recommended process, that they be separated from those two things. There could be a budgetary reason increases aren't given, or given, a market adjustment. There could be things other than performance that would drive an increase. So, and really what this form does and this process does is focus on goal setting, employee development, and succession planning within our departments. So that's what we're working on currently. And as a part of that process, I did want to announce one promotion that did occur during within the administration group. And so effective 12/1/2021, we promoted Del Skimmerhorn from Manager of Planning and GIS to Director of Planning and GIS. Del has been with the county since August 16th of 1990, where he started as a draftsman in our planning department for about $14,000. So he's been, has had a very long career with the county. He was GIS coordinator. He went to planning and GIS specialist. He became the manager of that group in December 2015, January. I couldn't find the exact EDS, but about that time frame, January. Not quite sure. He'll correct me when I sit down. But we've spoken with Dell about how to make this change for some time and what that next step really looks like in terms of leadership instead of managing. And I will say that I think Dell has he excelled this year in the leadership training. Dell was the one spot on. Dell was the one that was in my office all the time, not all the time, but several times throughout that leadership 12-week leadership class, talking about how he was implementing what he learned in that class in the department. So just really pleased with Dell, and we felt this was the appropriate time to make that promotion. So, anything to add?
Just that I was very happy to see how Dell engaged the process, did the self-analysis on what the difference between management and leadership was, and then internalized that. But not only that, but it proliferated out through the department. So it's just not recognizing it as taking action on that within the department. And also to mention that we're not done. This continuous improvement mindset is something that by definition must continue. So as we work on better customer service in the department, that's all departments that we have, but that's just a focus. How we better serve the public in an office where you don't always tell them what they want to hear. Very rarely do people actually hear what they want to hear out of a code enforcement division. That's just by definition. And Mr. Beavis is gone, but I'm sure he would shake his head and say yes when he's inspecting restaurants. It's not, you don't see people at their best. And so we have to be at our best all the time, and that's an ongoing thing, I think, that we're talking about. But to get to this point, management, we need a director in there, and Dell stepped up to assume that role. So, and worked at it. So that's how I would say the decision was made. So, is there any thoughts, questions about that?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to say something. Dell really puts his time in. He's there at night doing ZBA meetings. He runs transportation. He runs a lot of different things. And I really think that he'd be almost irreplaceable as he is right now in the current leadership position he's in right now. Nobody's better knowledgeable of all the books that we have up there for the county ordinances and zoning laws and stuff. So I'd just like to add that to that. He's a great guy for the position.
Okay. Also the review thing makes the one big point of this whole thing is alignment as well. When you do these reviews enough and realize it's not the idea of a review is kind of dysfunctional in the general sense as far as an employee being evaluated, always puts them back on their heels. But there's no better tool to use. So by uncoupling pay and performance, because you could do everything right and then the state takes $5 million from you and you don't have any money for raises. Sound familiar? I mean, so that's why you have to uncouple these things. You can do everything right. We're not a profit-based business. We're given money by the taxpayers and must allocate it wisely. So if it's not there, if something happens, well, then you see how they're not really connected in that. But the alignment part of it, if you look at goals and your goal may not be on the list when you're central to a goal on somebody else's list. You're able to look at all of your employees, and then as a management team, we're able to look at it and look for those connections between departments, because not everything is done within a silo. Sometimes planning needs another department, whether it's the assessor or the recorder or somebody as far as a long-term project. This is a really great way to look at alignment between our departments as well. So, would you agree? Yes. Yes, Mrs. Weber.
One concern you have talked with us about in the past is testing of employees or vaccinations. Is there an update on that you have?
Well, when the testing mandate came out November 6th. What I kind of said at the board meeting was we're going to wait and see what happens. Well, since that time, OSHA has put that mandate on hold. They're not moving. We've had no further guidance from them and nothing from the state. So if you remember from the county board meeting, what I said was, as a government entity in Illinois, we're not subject to federal OSHA, we are subject to Illinois state OSHA. So we wait for their guidelines. Now, what we fully anticipate or would be, if not similar, the same guidance as federal, right, in something like this. But we've heard nothing so far. So right now, we kind of are in a wait and see kind of mode for what happens here over the next, and it's a day by day. Since COVID started, I literally start my day looking at OSHA, the CDC, you know, IDPH, to figure out where the trends are, what any new requirements are, what the regulations are, and kind of what we're seeing just even in caseload and positivity, so that I can maybe estimate what's going to happen. So it's a process that is ongoing.
It's not going away.
No, it's not.
Well, in terms of the mandate vaccination, it very well could be going away. That OSHA has backed off of that, and that was the mandate from the president. Now the states can still enact their own deal. Like Illinois could say we want a mandate within Illinois, but as far as OSHA goes, they have backed off. They're not moving forward with it as it stands right now. Could it come back? Maybe, but they've announced that they're not moving forward with it. OSHA is not federal. So that was a big kind of like, well, psych, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. They're not moving forward with it as it stands right now. Could that change? Yes.
Yes.
So it's, I can tell you from here locally, we had a backup plan for testing to go to all of our different facilities. Sure. When it was first announced, I talked to a potential vendor that would do all the reporting for us and, you know, assemble everything. Would be costly, and you know, obviously, but our employees wouldn't have to leave the buildings. We would go to them. But at no time would I ever say that we would force, or would I ever support forcing anyone to be vaccinated. We would just make the testing requirement because that's non-invasive. So even if somebody was vaccinated and they didn't want to prove that they were, well, then all you gotta do is be tested. You see where I'm going with that? That's your business. And I think that's probably where this board was at the time that we made the statements that we made. You know, as far as forcing people to give up their right of conscious health care. If you remember that letter we sent off to our legislators. So it's kind of like much ado about nothing right now, but we still have the apparatus in the background if we had to bring testing to our employees.
That's what's comforting, is that there's a plan.
Yeah.
And so thank you.
Yes, Mr. Siri.
And just to piggyback on that point, that's, you know, we receive these emails about the testing kits, and just a half a pallet of tests, which is 864 tests, are $13,000, about $400. So, you know, we don't want to be going through our ARPA money so fast, because I think they prepaid us for what they're going to be billing us for in the long haul. That's expensive when you're testing employees that aren't vaccinated maybe once a week, you know. And how many employees do we have? You know, 500 and some, or, you know, if you take your, I don't want to know the percentage of unvaccinated to vaccinated, but it gets costly when you have to provide these tests, and they've already paid us some money, so I'm thinking they prepaid us on what they're going to be telling us to do.
If you think about when it was, as we were looking at a possible OSHA mandate, then the concern was, you know, if you can't, it's, say there's 45%, say there's a couple hundred employees that aren't vaccinated, I don't know, that have to undergo the testing. We have to have records for all of that. And what if somebody's not there, or somebody really wants to avoid the test as well, and we're having difficulty getting that? Every OSHA violation, now this is the feds, not the state where we're under, is $13,700. And intentional non-compliance with OSHA can be up to $137,000 per instance. So let's say you're missing 5 people once a week. When we talk about, you know, an impact to the budget, that's where my head was at through this process, is how do we ensure we're getting every single person every single week? It becomes worrisome.
Yes, and could be very costly.
Could be very costly.
Oh, now a second part of my question. That was just a comment for Mrs. Weber. Anyway, evaluations. So are department heads evaluating their personnel, and who is evaluating department heads?
Well, to be clear, it starts with a self-performance review instead of the word evaluation. Gotcha. Kind of denotes kind of like a but a performance review of your own performance and goals for the last year, and then moving forward for the next 12 months. And then the supervisor of that employee reviews and discusses with that employee, and thus the department heads in administration, theirs are sent to myself, and Andy and I will review that with the employee.
Thank you. Just to understand.
Typically, yeah, the employee reviews themselves, and they've got a year before that to look at their goals. Did you meet them? Why not? Well, this is the first year, so it's somewhat blank on that side.
Right.
But then after they review themselves, and the next section is like, here's their review of themselves, and the manager puts their comments in. Then that all comes up to us, and we talk about their comments and what are your feelings and those things. But then the department themselves would fill out their own self-evaluation and send that to Anita, and then we talk about it, because then you get full alignment on everything, and then you're able to talk about their employees, and they put this down, and why did you feel this, and you know, it's a really in-depth process, but it's more about figuring out the steps on the journey than the destination. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah,
and no, and I appreciate this, and I agree with everything that's going to be going forward. I just wanted to understand it more, because as an employer, I'm more keyed on performance and attendance than probably maybe where this is going, you know, to take that away. So I was just asking a question for my own.
And by the way, better attendance could be a goal for the next year.
Yes, it's always a goal.
Timely attendance. Mr. Hunter.
I just want to not necessarily piggyback on Vice Chairman Siroy's comments, but the comments that the chairman and county administrator made regarding evaluations. Now, that's, you know, my forte, and evaluation is a hallmark of best practices, and I applaud your efforts for articulating that, and I do appreciate that. It kind of hit me right there when you made those comments. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, the whole goal is to have an evaluation or a discussion that is not a hammer, but more a tool to be used the next year to improve performance, and then the possibilities of advancement and those types of things.
Well, and for me, it's always been, how do we have leaders within our departments that are growing their teams and growing their departments' goals and looking forward? How are we building on what we have and making ourselves better consistently year after year?
Okay. Anything else for Anita? Yes, Mrs. Weber.
Thank you, but the opposite side of that is important too. In the past, in some of our business dealings at the county, those evaluations would have been helpful in some of the decisions we were trying to make.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Empirical evidence.
Yeah. It actually does help department heads.
Surely.
And the employees as well.
Sure.
Yeah, so, all right, thank you so much. Some appointments, reappointments. Let's see, the reappointment of John Adams to the Kankakee County Historic Preservation Commission, and Sherry Ebert to the Kankakee County Historic Preservation Commission. Also, Catherine Langlois to the Kankakee County Historic Preservation Commission, and Bill Bukowski, it's a reappointment to the Kankakee Regional Planning Commission, and the appointment of David Marcotte to the Spring Creek Drainage District. Is there a motion to combine and approve those? Mr. Miller, second, Mr. Long. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. A few openings. One opening on the following: Clawson Park Drainage District, Zoning Board of Appeals, Exline Creek Drainage District. I will mention that the ZBA, I had somebody had somebody for the ZBA, but they were on a planning commission of a municipality. Those are conflicts because there could be opposing viewpoints between the municipality and the county. So we've had that come up with another board member who was on the planning board in Kankakee, and they had to pick a lane, you know, PZA or you know, Kankakee. So I just want to mention that. That's really, you have to keep an eye on that one conflict if you're looking for somebody out there in those townships where we don't have a representative on ZBA. Let's see here. 2 openings, Kankakee Township Fire Protection. 2 openings, McGilvery Special Drainage District. 2 openings, Canavan Drainage District. 2 openings, Mantino number 9 Drainage, and 7 openings on the Regional Planning Commission. All of those besides the Regional Planning Commission and obviously the ZBA, you have to live or own property in those districts. So those are those stipulations as me and Mr. Hunter were discussing. And I think our last full board meeting on, you know, as far as people applying for those positions. We've already done the resolution for the intersection. I don't really have anything else right now. I just wanted to mention that the Illinois LRB, basically the group that does the bills for the senators and the representatives, they have to send what their drafts are in there for the next legislative session. Those dates are January 7th and 14th. So if this board or members have something that they would like to see part of the legislative agenda, it may be to reaffirm something we've already done, like the auditor bill. I think that would be appropriate going forward. We can ask our senator or our representative to introduce that bill again. You know, those types of things. Is there things that we need to do in Springfield? Maybe it's a full repeal of the travesty of the police reform bill and the massive impacts we see, especially in the state of Wisconsin, with people that are just let out of jail willy-nilly. They do things. Well, that's coming to Illinois, folks. Just letting you know, that kind of stuff's coming here if you just let people out with $1,000 bail for trying to run somebody over. So here we won't even have that. Imagine that.
No bail.
So if you got something, please send it in. We would be happy to forward it to the senator and representative, or we can try to, if it's something that we've already voted on that you want to reaffirm, it can go back to the full board next month, since we're still in the same legislative process session, if you will, and we've already voted on those. So the same people are still here. We could put it back to the full board. So with that, is there anything else? New, old?
I have something new.
Yes, sir. Mr. Seroy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to formally and informally invite the executive committee to the December 3rd Jack Sikma floor dedication at St. Anne Community High School. There will be about a 25-minute dedication process, a reception with Hall of Fame basketball inductee Jack Sikma, who had a couple different championships when he was with the Seattle Supersonics. The number leaves me right now. There in attendance will be the 1972 and 1973 class. Jack's friends, there'll be a reception area. Representative Haas will be there to dedicate a section of Route 1 that's going to be the Jack Sikma Road. And I will be able to give a little, I think I get to introduce Representative Haas, but it will be a game versus Moments, which is always a rival game and a well-attended game. So I would like to extend the invitation to the reception and at 5:45 p.m. at St. Anne Community High School. If you are interested in going, please let me know. There will be a pass list with your names on there, and in the student center, I think that's where the Jack gathering will be. The gym is where the game will be. I think there will be more people in the gathering than in the gym, but you never know. So I would like to invite you all to come out, and if you want to meet Jack or at least be around, it's good networking, I think.
December 3rd?
December 3rd, 5:45 p.m., St. Anne Community High School. The floor is being dedicated to, it's going to be the Jack Sikma Court. The dedication was supposed to happen last year, but with COVID and a limited amount of people you could have in a gymnasium, that got pushed off till this year, so.
Sounds good.
Everybody's
Thanks for the
welcome.
invite.
Send me a text if you want to go. I'll make sure your name is on the pass list. So, thank you.
And that's a benefit under $75, so you can accept it.
Oh, yeah.
That's for our basketball boys raffle. So each kid, if they sell $200 worth of tickets, they get their gym shoes and their warm-up suits. We're hoping to have that raffle that night, but we will not have the raffle until everybody sells their tickets. So that way everybody can still have a chance to sell their tickets.
All righty. Mr. Hess, you look like you want to say something back there. Hold on, Mr. Peyton, did you have something?
I just wanted to ask them how much was the ticket?
They're $20 a piece this year. Yeah. Autographed Jack Sikma basketball will be the number one prize.
Probably could listen to the county board.
I'm hoping we can sell some tickets that night. Yes.
No, that sounds good. Are you getting those little basketballs so they look like they did in his hand? They look like those little ones. All righty, Mr. Hess.
I would make the motion we adjourn, sir.
Is there a second to that? Ms. Polk with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same side.